Right, hi. Now, most leaders I work with are obsessed with the P&L and the balance sheet. You look at the bottom line, see black ink, and think you are safe. But these documents are historical. They tell you what happened, not what is happening. They're full of ghost numbers, figures that look solid on paper but hide the context that destroys value. You see, financial blindness isn't about being bad at accounting. It is about not seeing the strategic context behind the data. And here's the thing. When I was group finance and commercial director, I was instrumental in helping one particular company grow 20-fold in revenues. And subsequently, as a CEO and board strategist for private companies, what I've done is I've observed countless boardrooms where we've celebrated a massive revenue spike, only to realize 6 months later that the very deal was bleeding the company dry. And these are strategic blind spots that cost millions. So in this particular video, I want to walk you through 3 areas where leaks happen. These are client profitability, the efficiency trap, and the cash growth paradox. And my goal is simple. By the end, you'll have a new lens to audit your organization. So let's dive straight into the first blind spot. This is what I call the good client paradox. And the mistake here is confusing high revenue with high value. We have all been there. The sales team lands a massive contract. The logo is famous. The revenue numbers are huge. Everyone celebrates. But actually, let me back up and explain why this may be a trap. Think of these complex clients like a Trojan horse. On the outside, it looks like a gift, a beautiful high revenue statue you bring into your fortress. But inside are soldiers waiting to destroy your margins, the servicing costs, endless customization, and management attention that gets sucked into a black hole. Now, the problem is the dynamic between visible and invisible costs. The visible costs are easy to track on your P&L. You have cost of goods sold, you have shipping, you got direct labor, and that's fine. But the invisible costs, my dear friends, are where the profit evaporates. And I'm talking about the emotional drain on your team, the custom integration that takes your best engineers away from research and development, and the endless meetings required just to keep that particular client happy. So here's the thing. You need to stop celebrating your biggest clients. Right now, your number one revenue stream is probably the one who may be bleeding you dry. I watched a logistics CEO nearly collapse when we ran the numbers. He was proud of his top 10 accounts, but after applying a full cost allocation, factoring in every minute of senior management time, we found they were actually losing money on every shipment to their biggest customer. Now, the solution was brutal but necessary. What we needed to do was fire the bottom 20% of their high maintenance client list. And the result, an immediate and measurable increase in bottom line profit. So what you need to do is you need to run this audit on your business today. And you need to distinguish between gross margin as well as contribution margin. Now, gross margin is just revenue minus direct costs. Contribution margin accounts for the variable friction that specific clients create. So here's what you need to do. Run a client friction audit. Don't just rank clients by how much they pay you. Rank them by their effort to yield ratio. If a client brings in 20% of your revenue but consumes 50% of your team's energy, That is not a client. That is a liability. Now, once you fix who you work with, you have to look at how you spend money. And this brings me to the second blind spot, the efficiency illusion. This is the trap of cutting costs in a way that accidentally cuts value. And I call this the starvation cycle. When the market gets tough, the knee-jerk reaction is to slash operational expenses, OPEX. You cut travel, you cut training, and you would cut marketing maybe. And it looks great on the P&L briefly. But research from Harvard Business Review and Gartner shows a different reality. And here's the thing, companies who cut costs indiscriminately during downturns recover 50% slower than those who cut selectively. Think about your business like a Formula One car. To go faster, you don't remove the brakes or swap for cheaper tires. You tune the engine and improve aerodynamics. Now, when you slash costs without really thinking, you're removing the brakes, just like cybersecurity and quality control, or removing the fuel like R&D and talent development. So you need to understand the difference between efficiency and effectiveness. So efficiency is doing things right. Effectiveness is doing the right things. So most CEOs I meet sacrifice effectiveness just to look efficient. So let me share a real world example. I once worked with this one particular manufacturing company that was obsessed with OPEX, operational expense. And to save money, they cut their preventive maintenance budget by about 30%. And they looked like heroes for 3 quarters. The numbers were beautiful. Then a critical piece of machinery failed because it hadn't been serviced on a timely basis. And the production line stopped for 2 weeks. The cost, my dear friends, of the repair and the lost business was 10 times the amount that they had saved in maintenance. Now they fell into this particular trap of OPEX obsession, and they underfunded a distinct capability to save a few percentage points. So you need to apply a strategic versus non-strategic cost filter. Strategic costs are the ones that if you cut them, you lose your competitive advantage. Non-strategic costs are just overheads. You can cut overheads. You cannot cut muscle. You must protect the investment that drive future value even when things are tight. Now, these are not basic tips. These are basically advanced governance frameworks that can fundamentally shift your whole business model. It is quite dense, but it is necessary. By the way, before I continue, if you are finding value in this high level analysis and you want to ensure your business is built on solid ground, please like, subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell. It just helps us continue this conversation about boardroom excellence, about business transformation, finance, and mindset mastery. Okay, so we have covered the clients and the costs, but there is one final blind spot that is actually the most dangerous of all, and it has to do with the oxygen of your business. So let's get into this particular aspect. The third blind spot that kills more growing companies than anything else is the belief that profit equals safety. It actually doesn't. And I like to use the oxygen analogy here. You see, revenue is vanity, profit is sanity, but cash is oxygen. You can survive a long time without food, which is your profit, but you can only survive a few minutes without air. So you cannot breathe promises. The phenomenon that destroys business is growth eats cash. It sounds counterintuitive. You think I'm growing, so I must be safe. But I've seen companies that double revenues in a year and file for bankruptcy the next month, despite showing massive profits. And why is this? It's because they didn't understand the cash conversion cycle. You need to track three components: days sales outstanding, how fast you get paid; days payable outstanding, how fast you pay suppliers; and days inventory outstanding, how long cash is trapped in stock. And here's the reality, my dear friends, that usually silence the room. If you pay your suppliers in 30 days, but you allow your clients to pay in 90 days, you are essentially acting as a bank. You're financing your clients' businesses without your own survival capital. And that, my dear friends, is a massive risk. This creates the working capital trap. So let's say your sales increase by 20%, which is fantastic. But your working capital requirement, the cash needed to fund that inventory, pay the staff, and cover those receivables might spike to 40%. And if your cash reserves cannot cover that gap, you're going to hit a wall. Now, to avoid this, you should consider implementing a rolling 13-week cash flow forecast. And this is distinct from the P&L. The P&L tracks promises, but the forecast tracks reality. It allows you to see the cash cliffs weeks before you fall off them. And listen, it is not the CFO's job to fix this alone. The CEO must set the tone for cash discipline. So let's bring this all together. To stop bleeding millions, you have three jobs. First, audit your client friction and stop confusing revenue with value. Second is distinguish between efficiency and effectiveness. Don't cut the brakes to make the car lighter. And third, respect cash as oxygen. The final takeaway is this: great governance is not about restricting the business or slowing you down. It is about removing the blinders so you can drive faster without crashing. So stop managing history, start governing reality. And if you want to dive deeper into high-level strategy, please ensure to subscribe to my channel. I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Bye for now.